Hello, and a warm, warm welcome to all of you. Those of you joining from Asia, a very good evening. And those of you joining from Europe or UK, a very, very good morning. Very often we find ourselves feeling that we have always been nice to everyone. Then why are things not happening right for us? We start questioning the law of karma. It doesn't seem to be very fair. Today, gathered with us is our dear Brother Charlie, joining us from Australia. He is the National Coordinator of Brahma Kumaris Australia. In 1975, Brother Charlie learned meditation with the Brahma Kumaris in London. And having practiced meditation over the past 40 years, he is internationally a much sought after meditation teacher, speaker, and retreat leader. But apart from all the responsibilities that he has, he is very, very sweet and always smiling. So let us all give him a warm welcome today. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Javine, and it's really lovely to see you. Normally I see you in Jakarta, but I think you're in the UK at the moment. But the beauty of these sessions is that it doesn't really matter where we are, we can meet together. So thank you so much for your very, very loving and warm welcome. Yes, tonight I'd really love to explore this extraordinary law that really governs life for all of us. And that is the law of karma. And I think most of us who watch these sessions are meditators. And I wonder if I was to ask you, how is your meditation going? Are you happy with it? Do you find it easy, or do you sometimes find it difficult? Do you find your meditation stable or sometimes fluctuating? Do you sometimes sit to meditate with such a pure intent, that really, I just yearn to taste that deep, sweet feeling of silence, and yet the mind gets caught in such trivial thinking about the family, things like what will be happening for lunch. And so tonight, in a way, we're going to explore why sometimes we have habitual negative thought patterns, sometimes about the self, sometimes about others, sometimes about situations. Why sometimes I want to go beyond, really go into peace, but I can't. It's like a gravity that keeps me stuck in the waste and negative thinking. Why sometimes habits are stronger than me. You know how sometimes you wake in the morning and you feel that today I'm going to be really sweet with everybody. And in 1 minute and 20 seconds, you're growling at somebody. Something has irritated you. Or even you wake up and everything in life is okay, but I feel flat. I feel empty. I feel nothing in a sense inside. Because I think on the spiritual journey, my experience is that there's a deep and profound relationship between thought and action. Have you ever tried to meditate when you're angry? Can you meditate? No, of course we can't. And my own experience is that we yearn to taste that beauty of inner peace. Is there anything more precious in this world? And so when we sit to meditate, we often wrestle with our mind. I think we all know what that's about. We wrestle. And yet sometimes feel I just can't have the quality of thought I'd like. Because Sometimes it's my actions that are influencing my thinking. And I would say really that a serious meditator or a person seriously on a spiritual journey, really begins to understand deeply that my actions influence my thoughts and my thoughts influence my actions. And if I really want to upgrade the quality of my meditation experience, I have to look at the actions I'm performing. And this is why really on this beautiful journey to a deep meditation practice, I really need to learn, or look at my actions. And the law of karma is a law which governs the spiritual and the physical worlds, a fascinating law. And the law of karma is the law of action and reaction, doing and receiving, sowing and reaping. And in my experience, as I've moved around, there's so much misconception, I would say, about this law sometimes. Because my experience in the Western world, often karma, the word karma means something negative. John Lennon of the Beatles many years ago sang a song called Instant Karma. Some of you may remember. And it's almost like when your attitude's not so sweet, instantly something returns to you. But actually, karma can be such a positive thing. When I understand the power of an action is the intent behind it. And when the intent is pure, clean, and elevated, I can create an incredibly positive future for myself. In the East, I find that there's a feeling of fatalism about the law of karma. It's my destiny. There's nothing I can do. And I remember I have a friend who was in Sri Lanka, actually, and he's a professional actor. And he was telling me once he was employed in Sri Lanka to go to the villages, and he used to perform a little play, which really was telling the story that actually, you're not just, when you're born into poverty or you're born into difficult circumstances, that doesn't mean that's your lot in life. You can change your lot in life really by the quality of the actions you perform. And so sometimes, people just think, oh, karma's all negative. Sometimes people feel it's my fate. This is my lot. I've just got to wear it. I've got to handle it. And even once I was in South Africa, and I met a woman who was attending the Brahma Kumari Center there, and she was a member of parliament in Nelson Mandela's government. And actually, I was talking to her about the law of karma. And as I began to speak, she said, I don't like the law of karma. And I said, oh, really? Why not? And she said, because the inference is that if you're born in a poorer country, you weren't such a good person. And I said, no, there's so many layers of karma. There is material karma, but there's emotional karma too. The karma of whether you're born or you live in a loving environment, and there's health karma. There's many, many layers of karma. And so it's not just on a material level. And I think for many of us, we would feel if we were given a choice for material well-being, or if I can say emotional well-being, which is really like having loving relationships, then what would we choose? I think most of us would choose the love. Now I'm going to say, can you hear okay? Because there's quite a lot of rain here at the moment. Is it okay? It's okay.
Yes, it's perfect, brother. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jabin. Yes, I'm getting the thumbs up. Thank you. So one of the fascinating things about this law is that it is a law where really science and religion can meet. In the Bible, it says, as you sow, so you reap. And in a way, we could say, as we perform actions, we reap a quality in our life. In the Gita, the oldest scripture in the world, it says, you are a soul. You take on a body to act. I'm an eternal soul. I take on a human form to act. My actions create my destiny. So in a sense, it's really powerful that I am the creator of my own fortune in life, my own destiny in life, according really to the quality of actions I perform. But many of us also know Newton's third law of dynamics, which says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And one way I look at it sometimes is if you get a ball and you throw it against the wall, it'll come back with almost equal force. Just think that almost every day, I'm throwing my thoughts, my attitude, my words, my actions into life. And I reap the fruit of that. And really, the more we begin to go deep into life and the law of karma, it makes me very attentive to my motives and the sort of thoughts, words, and actions I'm performing in my life. These are not man-made laws. These are universal laws. And I know on all these sessions that Sister Jabina has been doing so beautifully for a few years, I'd say most weeks we discuss the self. And, you know, at the heart of a spiritual practice is self-awareness. Who am I? And we know I am a soul. The soul is just a point. It exists, but it has no size. It's a wonder. And I, the micro point of life energy, sit in the front of the brain around the pituitary gland. But in fact, the soul is an overname for three aspects of consciousness. So when we start to delve into who am I, the soul is really the overname for, firstly, the mind, thinking and feeling. Secondly, the intellect, that part of me that's always judging and assessing at every millisecond. Even as I'm speaking now, a part of you is assessing everything I say. I agree with that. I'm not so sure about that. I disagree. You're constantly, the intellect is constantly assessing information. And thirdly is like a huge database of my experiences. And so what is really happening in our consciousness is that I often see the mind like a screen. Just imagine your mind is like a screen. You're all sitting in front of a screen now. And the information from your sense organs, what you see, what you hear, what you speak, is thrown up on the screen of your mind. And you're like sitting, the intellect is like sitting in the audience, assessing the information. You see all the data and you make a decision. You act or you speak. You do something. Every single action is recorded in your subconscious. So as you and I are sitting here now, wherever we sit in the world, we are carrying a perfect record of my past. If we can say in another way, my karmic story. There was a French philosopher called Rousseau, and he once said that everywhere man is born free, but everywhere he's found in chains. Ostensibly, we're free. I can decide, yes, I'll go here, yes, I'll go there, I'll do this, I'll do that. But actually, we have the chains of fear, the chains of worry, the chains of anxiety. And these chains are really based on the experiences of my past actions. And this is when we go deep into the self. One, I know I'm a soul. But secondly, I'm carrying the whole record of my past. And the past is like a shadow over me in the present. And so all the past habits, and when you do an action 20 times, they say it becomes a habit. So when someone behaves in a certain way and I get irritated, it becomes my habitual pattern to become irritated at them. And so let's say as a child, a dog bites me, then it's recorded in my subconscious. Each time I see a dog, fear can emerge in my mind. And fear is one of the main criteria to understand my past and my karmic story. And so not only just of my childhood, even my past lives. And I remember once a woman came to one of our centers here in Australia, and she was telling me she has 4 children. And because Australia, all the cities are near the water, when the children are very small, they take them to learn to swim as a safety precaution. And she was just saying to me that 3 of her 4 children just took the water like a duck. You know how children usually just love swimming. But one of them, a little girl, whenever she got in, she started to cry. And if they suggested she puts her head under the water, she had a panic attack. And so that, she was saying they're the same parents, they eat the same food, everything's the same in life. But there's some recording from the past in that little girl, some negative experience about water. She didn't consciously understand it, but it was creating a sense of discomfort. And all of us know sometimes in life we come into situations where we feel incredibly uncomfortable because it's touching on some stories aligned with my past. And sometimes I think, when we start to go into the soul, I am an eternal soul. I'm not a temporary body with all my temporary labels. I'm really not a male. I'm not Australian. I'm not all that. That's my temporary identity. My permanent identity is the soul. I carry the story of my past, and I don't die. When I leave my body, mostly I will go almost instantly into a womb. And in the womb, the soul will remember its past life. It will go through feelings of its past life. And then I'm born and I say, this is my mum, this is my dad. These are my brothers, these are my sisters. And then, this is my city, this is my country. And then as I grow up, this is my career, this is my job, this is my wealth. And then, this is my partner, these are my children, these are my grandchildren. You just think, we build up this incredible identity around this particular body. In a second, the soul flies from the body. We call it death. And the soul goes back into the womb once again. And then it's reborn and it says, this is my mum, this is my dad, these are my sisters, these are my brothers, this is my city, we go through the whole process. And what is happening? I'm actually carrying the story from the past each time, and it's traveling with me. And this is really what we call my karmic story. And this is why really on a spiritual journey, I think we become aware of who I am. How sweet is that? When I know and experience who I am as a soul and I start to taste a true peace, I become aware of my beloved, the Supreme Soul. And I learn how to link my mind with a source that's eternally pure and loving. And I feel so sweet. It's like I've come back. I've found my place. And yet sometimes old feelings come back, old worries, old fears, old anxieties, because I still have my outstanding karmic story. Why do I meditate? Why do I meditate? Firstly, it calms me down in the present. What an incredible art in life to sit and use my own thoughts to cool my mind and my feelings and my heart down. Secondly, I start to clear this karmic story of the past, because this is like the shadow. And in a way, When my karmic story, I don't have any power over it. It's like I'm a puppet dancing to the tune. In other words, in my intellect, I say, I don't want to get angry. I don't want to get angry and yell at the people I love. And 1 minute later, what am I doing? I'm getting angry and yelling and screaming at the people I love. And then how do you feel inside? And so, this is my past. And meditation, the whole aim, the more I become soul conscious, I start to clear the effect of that on my present. And thirdly, when I meditate, I get the power to do the positive actions in the future. So rather than doing an action with anger, I do an action with peace. And then what am I doing? I'm starting to create a more positive future, a more positive destiny. So in a way, I am taking back the power or the destiny, the control of my life, just by knowing who I am and understanding and knowing the law of karma. But this law, in fact, is an incredibly deep law. And I love it because it makes me fully responsible. Instead of just, all my life saying, because of this and because of you and because of this and because of that, there's always reasons to justify. The law of karma says you are fully responsible. And that takes courage to accept that. And yet it gives me the power back. As long as I'm saying it's because of my family and because of what they've done, I'm giving the power away. The law of karma gives me the power back. But there's an instant, effect of karma, and there's a long-term effect of karma. You think if in your life someone has been really loving towards you, so loving that at that moment you feel so loved, you will remember that for almost your whole life. So to me, that's such a powerful thing. When I really give true love to another individual, that instant elevated action will hold good feelings in the heart of the other for you for virtually all their life. They will remember you. But if I get angry, what's the effect? Instantly, I feel disturbed. My heart pounds, my stomach churns. We know that the stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, go through your body. You feel really uncomfortable. And also, in the long term, what happens? It's almost like human beings have a little digital camera in their soul. And if someone gets angry, they're really wildly angry, go click, 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 and you record. And they have to perform, you have to perform peacefully 100 times to wipe that impression from them. So carelessness of a few seconds, getting angry, can affect your life for years, literally. And we can't blame them because it was my action which created the impression in the minds of others. And this is why the law of karma really makes you aware that you, at each moment, are creating your own destiny. Even lying. When you lie in the moment, you feel heavy. But in the long term, how complicated does it make your life? Sometimes you have to lie again and again to cover up for that original thing. And the law of karma is a very, very deep law that says that if you do a wrong action many times, you lose the awareness it's a wrong action. And once I was in India, actually at the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris. This was a long time ago, in the 1980s. And the Brahma Kumaris in India teach in jails. And they were teaching in a jail, and they taught meditation to a famous dacoit who, in India, that's a name for someone who's like a highway robber. And I interviewed him. I made a video. It was really quite fascinating, his life. And I could tell you the whole story, and we'll take up our whole time. But he, in essence, had a conflict, his village with another village. The villagers came over to his village and they ransacked some of the buildings. So he went back to revenge it, and in doing so, he killed somebody. He went into the hills, and for 20 years, he lived in the hills with a group of men. And he said himself, you know, the more I killed people, I felt nothing. He said, I killed many people. And it's almost like the more you do a wrong action, the karmic account is that you even don't realize you're doing it. And that's why sometimes if people aren't telling the truth and you say, but that's not true, and they feel really offended because so much sometimes not telling the truth, telling lies has blunted my awareness. My conscience is killed. I suppress my conscience. I'm not even aware that I'm doing an action against my truth. And so there's an instant feeling of karma. Usually, you know, if it's love, you feel uplifted. If it's anger or whatever, you feel the other way. But generally, in the journey of spirituality, we begin to observe we create and settle karma in 4 main areas. The first is the mind. And sometimes we think of karma as an action, but a thought is an action in a sense. If you create a negative thought, what's the instant response you feel? You feel peaceless. It's that simple. And so if I'm using my mind to criticize people constantly and see their defects, the karmic effect of that is I feel unhappy. I feel bad inside. It's that simple, really. We all know it. If you use your thoughts to be loving, to be kind, to have goodwill, you will feel quite peaceful and extremely happy. Personally, I pay so much attention to my attitude to people because it's my ego that keeps resting on people's defects. I feel that's, if you want to know how much ego you have, some people feel, oh, I'm very quiet. I'm like a church mouse. I don't say much. I don't have much ego. It's nothing to do with whether you're loud or soft or quiet. It's your mind. And if your mind is chronically critical, I would say that is ego. And a chronically critical mind, the karmic effect, you lose your peace and you lose your happiness. If I'm always using my thoughts are the most precious treasure that we have, there's nothing more precious than my thoughts, to worry. The karmic effect is that I feel this incredible heaviness inside. And this is the beauty of spirituality, because it makes me realize not to feel bad, because we all have some negative and waste thoughts. We will all do that. But if the more I increase quality thought about the self, about God, and even goodwill for others, I upgrade my experience in life. So I create and settle karma in my mind. I create and settle karma in my body too. And I remember once I was in a country and I went to give a talk at a school. And in that school, I think there were some questions about the psychosomatic nature of the mind, in a sense, you know, that how, you know, emotions basically affect my health. And, you know, afterwards I went to see the principal after the talk. I went to talk to him in the office. He said, I really believe that. He said, every time I've noticed in my school that when a teacher's having a hard time with students, or often the next day they're away with a cold or the flu. It's absolutely common knowledge that when I feel unhappy, I feel miserable, my immune system goes down, I am more vulnerable to illness. So when you do good actions, you're happy and you have a strong immune system. When you do not so good actions and you're not happy, your immune system becomes more vulnerable to illness. But probably the main area that we are interested in this whole story of understanding really how to live in this world and keep peaceful and happy, it's such a wisdom. There's no greater wisdom, is relationships. And the karmic story of relationships is something incredibly deep. And firstly, where I'm born, my family, is my family a loving family? Or it may be a materially wealthy family. It may be a family where I have a very good education. I get many opportunities. Oh, I may have all of them. So where I'm born is definitely a part of my past karmic story. And then really, I would say the quality of my relationships in life. Once I remember meeting a mother who told me she had 4 children. And she said, we were talking about these things. She said, of my 4 children, there was one, almost from the moment that child was born, it was harder than the other 3. It was much harder for me to maintain a good relationship. That child's my child. I love the child because I'm the mother, but it's been much harder than the other 3. And have you all noticed that you sort of have a unique karmic thing with almost every individual in your family or those people that you spend a lot of time with? Some, it's almost always easy. Some, it seems almost always a bit difficult. And some, have you noticed that you sometimes take the lead role? You're the sort of more dominating personality in the relationship. And in other relationships, you become subservient. And it's got nothing to do with male or female or even parent and child. Sometimes the female little child can be sort of calling the shots in the family, so to speak. Because in the past, we've been in different dynamics of relationships. Maybe, one party was the dominant and that comes in to the next life. And even if they're the child, they can become the dominant party, and their thinking and their decisions can really influence the whole family. So sometimes we fall into these patterns of being subservient to some and even dominating to others. And it's really incredible that sometimes we're born to parents, but my grandparents bring me up. Sometimes we're born to parents and I'm adopted to the other side of the world. Why? We just think, oh, that's the way it is. But actually, the soul's karma was more with the grandparents than the actual parents. Or the soul's karma was much stronger with a family on the other side of the world. The law of karma is a really fascinating law. And it sort of says that nothing happens without a reason. Nothing happens without a reason. And in the dynamics of relationships, sometimes I often feel that relationships can be like an iceberg. I don't mean because they're cold, meaning that we know that an iceberg is only 10% above the water and 90% below the water. So the way we are today is often because the soul forgets and the soul becomes body conscious. I see the 10%, I see the human form, the physical form. I'm attracted to the human form. And this is so common in relationships that I'm very pulled by somebody physically. And as I get to know them, the 90% below the water, which is the subconscious and the personality, starts to emerge. And so sometimes we start and we're so attracted to somebody, but as we get to know them, as we become familiar with them, I start to feel, oh, I'm not so sure. And then after a while, sometimes we really feel I don't have compatibility with this person. I don't feel comfortable. And I often will blame them. But actually, my innocence, my naivety, or my body consciousness has deceived me in a way because I've sort of been pulled on a superficial level by someone on a physical level rather than really on a soul level. And, these days, I often feel that if I feel really pulled to somebody, I would be very, very careful because sometimes that initial attraction becomes familiarity and it can become even like a dislike or repulsion. And the beauty is once I become more aware of who I am as a soul, I start to see beyond the conditions of the body. I'm not deceived by what I just see superficially, but I start to meet the soul. And really, this, I think, starts to create a more sustainable and positive connection and relationship. Even I once read The Karma of Gossip. Hey, who doesn't gossip in this world? I mean, unfortunately, it's just a part of life. But you know, research shows, psychological research, that if I was to say to you that, you know, this third person, they're not honest, they're not an honest person. You know what that person I'm speaking to thinks? They put it back onto you, the speaker. Actually, they partly think you're not honest. Instant karma of gossiping about other people. And so the karma of relationships. So we have the karma of the mind, the karma of the body, the karma of relationships, and even material things too. You know, in so many religious communities, they say if you give, it will sustain you. In the church, they always had a system they called tithing. If you give 10% of your income, you'll be looked after for life, because that karma, in a way, will always keep enough coming so that you eat well and you're housed well, you'll be okay. And, you know, even sometimes if we look at the world today, the so-called first world, you know, the developed world, what is it doing? It's giving billions and sometimes trillions of dollars of aid to the so-called third world. And so they're very proud that we're helping the countries that are not so poor, but actually it's a karmic thing. You know, a lot of the wealth that financed, you know, a lot of Europe, etc., came from places like India and Africa and so on. So the wealth was taken and now it's being paid back in like the form of aid. The law of karma never lies in a sense. And that's where it really begins to teach me that to take full responsibility. And there's some touchstones from the law of karma which will really help me understand how to manage life. And the first one, which I really love, is you are your own best friend or your own worst enemy. Because if I do actions according to my truth, I'll become my best friend. But if I know what action I want to perform and I keep doing the opposite, I become my own worst enemy. And, you know, often we point the finger of blame, you know, you did this, you did that. And when we do that, there's three fingers pointing back to myself. You know, the one with deep understanding of the law of karma will find everyone to be blameless, will not blame anybody, because I know that I am fully responsible. Now, there's no doubt people do wrong things, people do bad things, but actually I empower myself when I take responsibility for myself. The second, you know, law says, you know, for every effect, there's an original cause. So sometimes if I lose money, sometimes if there's a conflict, sometimes if something doesn't go wrong, you know, often if I'm a bit superficial, I don't have deep truth. I get very emotional, very disturbed. I talk to people. But if I'm a deep soul and I go into the depth, I know there's something from my past. It's not that we're bad people. It's just that when the soul loses the awareness of the self, and I come under and I start to do actions thinking I'm a temporary body, that action is colored by ego and anger and a lot of negativity. And therefore, the quality of my actions bring a low quality of response in my life. And so really, when I understand this, I go deep and I try to change for the future. Another one says that, you know, the quality of an action is the consciousness that it's done in. And really, the law of karma is all about intent. What was my intent? So there may be an old lady who needs to cross the road. She needs help. So I can take her across the road with a lot of love and a lot of, kindness to help the old lady. Or I can even, I see her and I get a bit annoyed and so I take her across the road, but I'm a bit I've got some appointment and I'm going to get late. So the intent is not so sweet. The same action, I took the lady across the road. One was with love and one was probably with irritation. So the one with love is an elevated action. And even I think, if you think in your life, if you reflect, if someone criticizes you, there's two types of criticism in a way. We all get criticized. Sometimes people really love us. There may be someone like my mother or a dearest friend, and their intent is to absolutely help me. They love me. And to help me, they say, I would change this, I would do this. Another person doesn't love me, is quite annoyed with me or frustrated. They speak of the same criticism. One uplifts me and inspires me to change. The other makes me feel hurt. It's the same criticism. The words are the same, but the intent behind the words are different. Even this is recognized in the courts of the world. If someone kills somebody and has a motive to kill, that's murder. But if someone kills somebody unintentionally, that's manslaughter. And so even the laws of the land recognize the difference between intent and other ways. And that's why do I meditate? Why do I meditate every day? Because when you sit in the morning and you have the highest thoughts, really elevated, loving thoughts for God, for your true self, benevolent feelings, and then you step into your day and your actions come from this highest place. All your actions are coming from a place of peace and a place of love. You will create a beautiful life, a really beautiful life. And that's why we wake in the morning and we spend that time with God. And when I do that, and my actions come out of that place of love and closeness to God, my actions can be really elevated. The final touchstone. The first touchstone, you are your own best friend or own worst enemy. The second, for every effect, there's original cause. The third really is, the power of an action is the consciousness or motive it's done in. The fourth is, as I do, others will follow. It's like the social aspect of karma. It's like parents. Parents, if they're a good example, their children observe who you are, not what you say. And if a little boy observes his father abusing his mother, what is he going to do? He's going to do the same. It's absolutely, sociologists tell us time and time again that when there's family abuse and so on, it's passed down from generation to generation. They learn it from their parents. And this is why really I think that this law is such a deep thing. And when I sort of absorb its depth, the essence of it is, don't give sorrow and don't take sorrow. And really, I find that most of us are very careful, usually not to hurt people, especially those we love. We go out of our way. We take responsibility not to hurt people, but we don't take responsibility not to be hurt by others. So sometimes we really are careful not to hurt, give sorrow, but we're we're so addicted to taking hurt and taking sorrow from others. And then in this cycle of blame, I feel hurt by you and I keep blaming you. This is when the soul is really in a karmic cycle of, taking sorrow, giving sorrow, taking sorrow, giving sorrow. And unfortunately, so many relationships are like that today. And this is why I think what we learn in Raja Yoga is that we can break the cycle of my past karmic story, where you sometimes find yourself in these patterns of unhappiness, these patterns of conflict, these reoccurring patterns in life. The more I really know who I am, and the more I really remember the soul who's beyond karma. God is a soul that's actually beyond the law of karma. And the more I'm under that influence, I've developed an acute awareness before I act. Is this going to bring me sorrow on others' sorrow, or is this going to uplift me and others around me? And I start to develop a deep understanding of what gives happiness and what gives sorrow. And the more I do actions and I meditate, and the intent and the motive in my actions and my interactions is loving, is goodwill, is pure feelings, good wishes, then really it's almost like the whole quality of my life gets upgraded. The quality of my thoughts, the quality of my feelings, the quality of my actions. And fundamentally, I just enjoy my life more. And so this is a really, really deep philosophy, a beautiful philosophy. And I find that, the more you really are soul conscious and you think, we're faced with situations every day, complex situations with complex personalities. How do I respond? The more you are soul conscious and detached, you see clearly the best way of dealing with this, so that, I don't give sorrow and I don't take sorrow. And hopefully my example really uplifts those around me too. So I'm going to wind up there. And I'm looking at Sister Jabin. Should we have a little meditation now or have questions now?
Yes, thank you, brother. Thank you for the deep, deep points that you have shared with us today. Indeed, the law of karma is very deep, and like you mentioned, we have not only the physical karmic accounts that we have the mental, we have the health and relationships, and many, many others. What I took from today's session is every karma has a consequence which can come to us today, in a few days, in a few years, or even few births.
That's
What
right.
we do today is the response to what we do today in response to what is happening to us is our present karma, and is completely our choice. So let us create the right thought, words, and behavior regardless of the situation. Let us not focus on what people and situation do to us. Let us focus on keeping our karmas right. So maybe with that, you can guide us to a meditation for a few minutes before we start with the question and answers. Maybe you could guide us on what kind of thoughts we should have when we meditate so that we can clear our karmic accounts, and also at the same time remind us to create the right actions or have the right thoughts.
Thank you, Sister Jabin. So I'd like to invite everybody, wherever you're sitting, just to sit very quietly. And please, maybe just for these few minutes, put down devices. Don't be distracted by things around you. And just visualize yourself as a tiny soul, a minute spark of life energy residing in the center of the forehead, in the front of the brain. Just feel yourself just letting go the image of your body. That's the temporary self. And feel yourself going deeper and deeper into your permanent self. I, the peaceful soul. Feel yourself becoming lighter and lighter. And in this state of soul consciousness, look through the eye of your mind and visualize the eternal form of God, a radiant jewel of light, an unlimited ocean of love. Become like a child and allow yourself to be completely loved. Feel this pure love entering the core of your being. And feel it healing you, soothing you. The more I feel this pure love, I become so still, so silent inside. And in this sweet place, I look at my life and I begin to see that I, the soul, am constantly acting through this body. And each action is creating my future. I am the architect of my own destiny. The reason I connect with God is the more elevated my mind becomes. It's the seed of an elevated action. My thoughts are the seeds of my actions and my behaviors. And that's creating my destiny. The more I realize this, I take full responsibility for who I am. That when I have love for God, I have love for myself as a soul, and I extend love and compassion to all, even those who may not agree with me, or those who don't cooperate with me. But I understand that the more I perform elevated actions, I create my future. The more I remember God, I settle my past. The whole reason for a spiritual life is to clear all the unfinished business that surrounds me. It's like cleaning the slate to prepare myself for the future. If each morning when I wake, I just sit quietly, remember who I am, remember the divine. This elevated beginning to the day will influence my karmas and create a positive life. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you once again, brother. I think I really like the line that you said, I start with a new clean slate. Isn't that beautiful? So, we have some questions here. The first question is all karma only remove my meditation, or has some of my karma been paid off by the pain and challenges of the past?
Absolutely, because each time we suffer, in a way, we're settling karma. But we're in this vicious cycle where I do actions, I suffer for my actions. I've done an action yesterday and I'm suffering today. Maybe I was negative, critical, rude, whatever. But I'm doing the same action today. So what's tomorrow going to be? And sometimes we're just caught in this karmic cycle, in a sense. And this is where really the whole idea of spirituality is, rather than being like the puppet dancing to the tune of my past, I hold truth inside and I start to dance to the tune of truth. So I'm changing the quality of my actions. So I might have been going in this direction in life and I do a U-turn and I go in this direction. And really, I can change the whole way of how I feel and how people respond to me when I really, transform myself. Yes. So
The next one is, am I opening a karma or karmic account or closing an account when I meet a new person? How can I discriminate or know the difference between them?
almost impossible to tell, though. Sometimes have you noticed that you can meet somebody and almost feel closer to them than some people you've known for many years? It's incredible, how you have an affinity with certain people. So it's almost impossible to tell whether I'm, opening or closing an account, so to speak. But I would remain really soul-conscious, because when you're soul-conscious, you're close, you're loving, you're respectful, you're connected, you're working together. But it's a karmic-free zone. You're not creating a karma with another soul. And even if they may criticize you or do something, I can choose not to respond, not to react to it. Or if I respond, I don't do the same quality of karma, criticize them back. I choose to be loving and kind. And if you pick a fight with somebody or an argument and they don't respond, what do? You sort of give up because they're not responding. And in a sense, you're settling a karmic account. Sometimes I've seen two people can have a difference, a conflict. One of them is deeply disturbed and the other one's not disturbed much at all by it. And so it's more the karma of the person that's deeply disturbed than the one who's not so disturbed. Now, that one may be ignorant of their behavior. That's true. But, really what is happening in the world at the moment is we are so addicted to being hurt by people, we increase our karmic story. And I have a little saying for myself: am I increasing my account? Am I sustaining my account, or am I settling my account? If something happens and I think, and then I speak to everybody, I'm saying I'm increasing my karmic account. If something happens, a difference or conflict, and I think, even when I meditate, I'm thinking, well, why this person? I would say I'm sustaining it. But if something happens and I look through the filter of truth, that yes, this is due to something in the past, I'm also responsible for this problem. It's not just all the other person. And I take responsibility, I learn from it, and I put a full stop and I move on. The only thing is we've become weak. And when we become weak, we can't stop the mind feeling hurt because we are addicted. My ego is addicted to being hurt at the moment. Now, I know it's easy to say, but really I've seen so many people who, when they really get a strong link with God, a genuinely powerful relationship, I can turn this whole game around, the game of taking sorrow from people. I just decide I'm not going to do it anymore. For me, I really made that decision years ago. I'm just not going to play that game. Someone may want to, give me sorrow, but I can choose not to take it if I don't want to take it.
Thank you, brother. There has been a question about the recording of this session. Yes, this recording will be available on YouTube. However, before we end the session, I'll be dropping my number on the chat box. You can make a note and I can forward you the recording. The next question is, Charlie Bai, you mentioned that when a soul leaves a body, he enters another body and remembers his past lives. Does this include remembering his past life relations, like spouse whom he had a strong bond and attachment with? Or does he just remember the incidents of his previous or past life?
I'd say both, but mainly the relationships. And, they sometimes say that, when little children, when before they can even speak, how sometimes they seem to vague out and they just sit there daydreaming. You know what they sometimes say, that their family of their past life is remembering them. It's like pulling their mind. You know what I say to people when a family member dies? Our behavior these days is to, feel sad, sorrowful. That's the way our world is at the moment. But I often say that if you really love them, your thoughts are reaching them at this moment, even if they're in the womb of another body, because they're a soul. What would they want to get from you? They want love. Have good wishes, have love, not sadness, I'm missing you. Because really that's how you support someone when they take rebirth. And the soul does reflect on its life in the womb, its past life. And actually, sometimes they say that the soul promises, God, I want to do it better next time. But when we take rebirth, once again, the habits of my past life, whether it's anger or ego or whatever it may be, they kick in. And that's why really the spiritual path is to remove the rubbish that I've collected so that the quality of my actions, when I do an action in body consciousness, it will be influenced by anger, ego, greed, lust, and attachment. But when I do an action in a soul conscious state, I meditate, I'm soul conscious, my actions are colored by peace, love, happiness, respect, compassion, mercy, and these become elevated actions. That's why the meditation practice is, in a sense, a seed of elevated karma. Why do we meditate? In a way, we meditate so we can perform elevated actions, and it's elevated actions that bring power back to the soul.
Thank you, brother. once again for joining us. And thank you, everyone who have joined us live today. To get the future sessions update, I have dropped my number in the chat box. Feel free to drop me a message so I can keep you updated. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, have a nice weekend, and yes, let's keep practicing creating good karma, which starts with having the right thoughts. Thank you once again, Brother Charlie.
Thank you, Sister Jabeen. Lovely to be with you. Thank you, everybody. It's been really lovely to be with you.
Yes, and a very good evening to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Om Shanti.
Bye-bye. Om Shanti.